Hey folks, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Latoya from Emerald Astrology, and I'm super excited to talk with you today about Saturn and Aries. So in this video, my intention is to help you reflect on what this transit can mean for you. Plus, at the end of this video, you'll get your horoscope to initiate that reflection process. So I'm really excited to give you my thoughts on Saturn and Aries. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and so that you can see. All right. So starting off on May 24th, we have Saturn entering Aries. This is like around 10 p.m. my time central. So Saturn will be in Aries starting off May 24th. Then he will actually station retrograde. And then at a point, we'll go back into Pisces on September 1st. And then on February 14th of next year, 2026, Saturn will be back in Aries. It will be in this sign until April 12th of 2028. So Saturn in Aries is here, and we are definitely will be experiencing him there for some time. So if you are not familiar with astrology, you may not be familiar with what Saturn represents in astrology. So I'll go ahead and break that down for you so that you are aware of this, of what this planet can represent in your life. So Saturn, that looks like this. And what it represents. So basically, Saturn carries a lot of the negative aspects of our life. In astrology, Saturn represents or is considered one of the malefics of the planets and next to Mars. And so Saturn being a malefic planet, and that we coin a lot of the negative things in our lives to, Saturn represents source of sorrow, misery, long-lasting punishments and grief, depressions, things that causes us to have tears, deceit. Can also be childlessness, or like just having one child if you have it in your fifth house. It could be of misery, feeling miserable, captivity, mishaps, slander, disputes, troubles, old things. Also represents elderly as well, or just old age. It also can represent help from ancient or obsolete things, or older people, or older brother. It could be also widowhood, orphanhood. Basically, Saturn is a very, it can be a very troubling planet, but it can also be a planet of where after we have gone through the trials and the errors, the most great reward, so after all that hard work and perseverance, there could be benefits and goodness that comes from that, but that only through really understanding something, really going through the hard lessons, and then coming out stronger on the other side. So Saturn represents this. And then Aries, the sign that Saturn will be going into. So basically Saturn, the way I like to look at the planets, they're like the actors of astrology or in our life. And then the signs that they will be in is basically the costumes that they're putting on, the personality that they have to perform through to get the jobs of Saturn done. And so Saturn, being the planet of restrictions and responsibility and hard work, has to put his costume on of Aries. And so Aries is the first sign of the zodiac of astrology, and it's a cardinal fire sign. So it's very passionate, very self-starting, very initiative, wants to follow intuition and instinct. It's very headstrong, can be pushy and impatient and rude, but it's all about taking action and being courageous and daring. And I like to see as Aries as a pioneer of the zodiac. So with Saturn being the planet of, depression and restriction and responsibility, putting on this costume of courage and action and daring is kind of conflicting, you know? And so the lessons of Saturn and Aries can be very, in a way, conflicting and can be troubling, at least in the beginning part of this transit. So I've noticed with, especially if it's planets early in the transits and are considered, so Saturn being considered as fall, early on in the transit, that's where you're kind of going through a lot of the big learning curve. And then towards the end, that's when we get the reward for all the work and the understanding that we've been through. So with Saturn and Aries, we are really wrestling with the characteristics of Saturn and the mannerisms of Aries, and having to reconcile these two polarizing, you know, characteristics and mannerisms to become one. And so Saturn loves to restrict and solidify, and Aries, being a fire cardinal sign, needs movement, needs movement, and likes bigger and likes better and likes improvement, and is not afraid of breaking outside of the box. And Saturn's about the box, you know. And so people, the way that this can manifest in our lives, people can appear as very cowardly or caught up and struggle with cowardly thinking and thwarting their authenticity and how they want to show up in life, and being spontaneous and taking action, taking lead, fighting for what they believe in. People will tend to withdraw and be afraid and scared and not knowing what to do, because Saturn is the tried and true path. This is like our elders telling us, been there, done that, do this instead. And then with Aries, it's like we're going on to a new territory. No one knows what is happening here. No one knows what to do. It's just trial and error. Just try it, just do it, and then get the feedback that you need. So it's kind of weird when we're coming in here, and as people, we're like afraid, and maybe even some of us is saying, well, I'm not certified for that, or who am I to have the right to do that, you know, to stand out for this, or to lead this group, or to change my life in a different direction when I have all these responsibilities and people depending on me. You know, this is the lessons of Saturn and Aries, and we have an opportunity to really dig deep and understand our resistance to this, to rising to the occasion. And so the things that we might struggle with is resistance to lead and take charge. We're terrified to show ourselves in a new way. And so Aries rules the head, rules the head, the identity, sense of self. And so there might be fear, grief, even around showing up in a new way. We may shame ourselves and think like, who am I to do that when I did X, Y, and Z? Because also Saturn likes to keep the score. So we might be trying to navigate this and have a lot of fear around it. Also, fear of the unknown is a thing too with Saturn and Aries. And so there's just a lot of unknowns, and we're definitely aware of it. But you know, with this is we can see it as an opportunity to test things out and see what this new territory is about, and not be so hard on ourselves. And again, with it being Saturn, this will be so much easier said than done. But I think at the end of this transit, we'll be able to get a better grip on this. There might be also an innate or instinctual knowing of what to do, and having to be okay with leaning into it, even though there is this intensity of self-doubt next to that. So that's something else that we might be struggling with the Saturn and Aries, and Saturn being in its fall. And this could be also this need to overcompensate, you know, to protect your lack of sense of self or sense of confidence. So you might even come across people that are like this. They would just overextend their power or try to dominate the situation because because of that fear of the unknown and not knowing what to do when things are out of hand, right? So that is the other spectrum of the Saturn and Aries transit, overcompensating and over dominating, or suppressing yourself and your sense of identity and what you desire and what you want out of fear of not being certified or allowed or seen as this figure. And the heart of Saturn in Aries, I guess I don't really need to have this because I'm not really looking at the transit. I'm just talking about the soul of this transit. But at the source of it, the center of Saturn and Aries, there is an opportunity to bring awareness of self and the importance of self and who you are and what you have to offer to the other. So Aries, right, also incorporates Libra, which is this opposite sign. And so Libra is the other. And so we having to remember first, who are we, and take ourselves be more responsible of ourselves and what we believe and what we know and where the territory we want to explore, and then allow the other to be a part of that journey with you. So the big thing that I want you to remember, if you don't remember anything else in this video, is that it is okay to be a little more self-interested during this time, even though our fear of being exiled, being cast out or cast aside is at an all-time high with Saturn and Aries. Saturn and Aries, if we want to think of it like a character, it's like a person that has been exiled. And they're in foreign lands. No one speaks their language. No one understands. You don't understand the people's culture and they don't understand yours. It's just you're really out of bounds here. And having to learn a new language, learn a new way of being, learn, and that comes with trial and error. And so just remembering that, this is a trial and error time for the next 2.5 years. That's on the menu, and that's totally okay. And the gift of this transit is courage. It's just to have courage, just having the willingness to stand up and just show up, no matter where you are. So yeah, so this is Saturn in Aries is an opportunity to understand yourself and your position and passion in life. And from there, you get to expand. The card that I want you to meditate on, if you want to, in the tarot, there's a 3 of Wands. So this card, so the first 2 cards, the first one was the inspiration came down to him to kind of really associate the what's that, Page of Wands. I associate that more closely to Saturn because of the staff, just the one staff. And they're just holding still and looking at the heavens for inspiration. They receive the inspiration. 2 of Wands, that is a time to plan. It's a time to really think, your strategy through and how you're going to navigate this territory or this, inspiration. And then 3 of Wands is when we are like, okay, now we will go out there in the world and we will go and try to expand our horizon, our understanding of our neighboring environments, and make ourselves known there. And so I suggest to meditate on this card throughout Saturn and Aries, and with this, help you remember that it's totally okay to explore, even though it might feel like you're going on barren grounds. There's still something on the other side, those mountains. So what is that? Is that new productive land that could be yours? Is that, new productive land that other people have and they're willing to share? Is it dangerous over there? You just don't know, and you need to know if it's dangerous so that you can protect yourself better. So yeah, to know what that land is over there to help expand your knowledge of the world around you and also your knowledge of yourself and what you're totally capable of is so important during that Saturn and Aries transit. So I think meditating on this card would be really helpful. All right, so let me go ahead and dive into the horoscope for each sign. All right, to start, we're going to talk about Aries rising. So I suggest to look at your rising sign because this is going to give you insight on area of life that this transit is really going to activate. You could look at your sun sign if you want to, but it wouldn't be as accurate of a reading unless you look at your rising sign. Okay, so Aries rising. Saturn will be transiting your first house of identity, sense of self, and how you impact the world around you. So as Saturn, the planet of discipline and restriction and hard work is here, this is, you're bound to experience a lot of restriction or sense of restriction mentally and physically. That can show up as, health issues, that can show up as mental stuff is coming up, or that's just, or your sense of your surroundings is also changing and kind of solidifying. And you're seeing like, okay, my path is really becoming much more concrete. And now I'm not as expanded in my thinking as I used to be. Now I'm kind of just seeing like, this is my path and how do I get better at it? And so by the end of this transit, I believe that you'll be much stronger and much confident in who you are, regardless of the limitations, regardless of restrictions. Like you understand your terrain and how you can perform and be effective in your life, in life direction, and growing your horizon. Taurus rising. So Saturn will be transiting your 12th house of mental health and self-undoing. As Saturn is in this place and is a planet of discipline and restriction, you would find, also he's in this place of joy here. You are bound to experience significant times for deep reflection and realizing a major chapter of your life is coming to an end. So this might manifest as a lot of time alone, may that be like you're going on retreats or meditation retreats, or you're meditating more, or you're working from afar and you just have time to be by yourself. These are all good manifestations. There's also jails and asylums and all that stuff. Hopefully not that, but the good manifestations, hopefully, if you have this time alone, you will be able to reflect on your life and how you got here, how you got to this point, and do some really deep work to help you propel yourself in a better direction moving forward. So I think by the end of this transit, you'll be mentally and spiritually stronger. Dive deeper into spiritual practices that are catching your eye and become a master of it during this time. All right, Gemini rising. So Saturn will be transiting your 11th house of influential friends, your networks, your wishes, and your dreams. And Saturn, being the planet of discipline and restriction here, you're pretty much bound to solidify what you wish and what you're hoping for, and also being able to discern what friend group, what networks are actually supportive in you getting that. So you're being much more discriminating on the friend groups that you have, the people that you spend time with, and their ideologies and how they are supportive of you and your dreams and your own individual wishes. And I think by the end of this transit, you might have a smaller group of friends, but they are much more powerful and much more effective in helping you get what you desire. So don't get hung up on like, oh, I got less friends, during this time. No, you have much more powerful friends. And you are definitely investing more of your time with them, or you're spending more time in discerning what groups that you should be with instead. and letting go of all your friends. So that can happen because Saturn is he also is the reaper, the grim reaper. He likes to harvest. He has that scythe. He cuts down on what is working and what is not. And when knocking down that grass and cutting that off, it's like feeding that ground so that it can be much more nourished and healthy. So you're doing that with your friends. You're doing that with the people you spend your time with, and creating more space and more healthy ground for more beneficial friends to come. Cancer rising. Saturn will be transiting your 10th house of career and public life. So as Saturn, the planet of discipline, restriction, and responsibility is here, you are bound to experience more responsibility in your career or your public life. If you're not working, how you're acting in the world, and reaping what you have sown throughout all these years. So so you're going to see like how much influence you have, how much people look up to you and make some really significant decisions on company or organizations that you are working with in a public scheme. And by the end of this transit, you'll figure out how you will continue to climb the ladder of success in your eyes. So also with Saturn here, you are defining what is success to you. And maybe, if you feel like you're on the wrong track, it's time to cut that down so that you can feed that, that ground for better opportunities later. Or, you're on the right track and you're just kind of discerning what's working, what's not within that scope, and then putting more energy towards getting more in an influential position in whatever area of that public life, career or not, that you are showing up. All right. Leo rising. So Saturn will be transiting your 9th house of higher education and long distance travel. So as Saturn, the planet of discipline and restriction and responsibility is here, you are bound to experience more structure in your learning experience. So that could be, if you're going for PhD, to just with different cultures of people or schools of knowledge. This is also the house of astrology. So you might, decide to take your astrology studies more seriously if that's something that you enjoy. And if you are, become a patron at my Patreon, become an astro devotee. But anyways, if you're Leo rising, you're experiencing this and you're becoming more serious about your studies, maybe even traveling more long distance, that either becoming more serious or restricted. And you could, at the end of this transit, could even become a mentor of sorts as well. So I think, at the end of this transit, you really understand what you believe and how you conduct yourself based off of that belief to eventually to move to the 10th house, be known for something and be secured in that public persona. Virgo rising. Saturn will be transiting your 8th house of other people's resources and intimacy. So as Saturn, the planet of discipline and restrictions and responsibilities, here you are bound to experience more vulnerable situations with other people and learn how to master your emotions instead of repeating old patterns and cycles that you've had inherited, that you've learned. And I think by the end of this transit, you'll understand yourself and other people better. So this could be, vulnerable situations from dealing with money with your spouse to, or just having to like ask for money from other people. Like this can be the manifestation of Saturn in the 8th house. Also with Saturn in the 8th, it could restrict your ability to receive support from other people financially for whatever reason, and even your spouse. So my suggestion, especially as I'm finishing, as I'm recording this, I'm finishing up my Saturn in the 8th transit. This is a time to really take inventory of what your skills are and make sure you're making some money, because you may not be getting, as ease of support from other people as Saturn is transiting through your 8th house. I think at the end of the day, this Saturn transit in the 8th is just teaching you how to rely on your own resources and know that you are much stronger than you think. Libra rising. So we have Saturn transiting your seventh house of partnerships and roles in partnership. As Saturn, the planet of discipline and restriction and responsibility, is here, you are really understanding your role in relationships, the significance of relationships, and what is right and wrong for you. So I think like by the end of this transit, you'll become a better partner to yourself and other people. You might end up breaking up with a partner that you've in the back of your mind, you know that was just not right for you. Saturn here will definitely make that opportunity very apparent and unavailable to you. If you decide to take that route, or this could be just a transit of you showing, all right, that the relationship is not what you expected, and now it's time to really clearly define roles in the relationship so that the relationship can survive and be healthy. So this is a time where we really need to really be discerning about our roles and what's right and what's wrong for us, Libra rising. All right, Scorpio rising. Saturn will be transiting your sixth house of work and lifestyle. So as Saturn is the planet of restriction, discipline, and hard work is moving through this, you are bound to experience some health issues, some karmic lessons. So this can be from very subtle to very acute, depending on how long you've been ignoring things or just like unaware of yourself. So there could be some karmic lessons going on here with your physical health and your working habits. I know whenever I had Saturn going through the sixth house in the past, that was a time where I realized that I was a workaholic and I needed to change. Like it was not working for me. It worked in the past, but it wasn't working anymore. And I had to really change my lifestyle, my eating habits, and even my schedule. I had to really dial it back. So you might notice that is a manifestation that is coming up for you. And I just suggest that you really understand the life that you really want to live, what kind of lifestyle you want to have, and then look at the kind of work that can support you. It doesn't matter what the work is. The goal is to understand the lifestyle you want and then the work that can support you in doing that, not the other way around. You don't want your lifestyle to support your work because that's not sustainable, especially if you're working 80 hours a week. That's not sustainable. Sagittarius, right? Okay, Saturn will be transiting your fifth house of children and creativity. And as Saturn, the planet of discipline, restriction, and responsibility is here, you are bound to have some really challenging experiences with your babies. If you have any, you might have a firstborn and you're like, whoa, this is like changing my life and how I show up. Can be very hard, but it's not impossible. So this is a really wonderful transit to really get serious about reconnecting to your inner child even. And so if you're having your first child, your first baby is here, and the Saturn transit is going on, this is just a wonderful time to really reflect on how you connect to your inner child, how you were raised, and then how you're going to raise your baby, or if your kids are grown in whatever stage now. Reflecting on that too is still very helpful. I think by the end of this transit, you will understand how to protect your time for your creativity, your inner child, and spending time with your children, no matter what age they are, and respecting those boundaries if they're older, So I think that would be wonderful. Capricorn rising, Saturn will transit your fourth house of the home and family. And so as Saturn is here and he's a planet of discipline, restriction, and responsibility, you might be experiencing some renovations in the home. That could be someone's moving in and they need more support. Maybe they're an elder in your family and they need extra support because they're getting old and they have medications and stuff. And so now you got to add an extra room to your house or rearrange your living situation to make room, or your sense of belonging is changing and you're really taking that more seriously and wanting to belong to something. Like something is growing within your soul that is like craving connection, and the isolation is overbearing. So this is a time to really open up and allow a sense of connection, may that be through friends or family. This is taking that more seriously. So I think by the end of this transit, your connection to yourself and who you are and what you need in a very physical, spiritual, and emotional sense is going to be stronger, as well as your connection to family will be stronger. All right, Aquarius rising. Saturn will transit your third house of short distance travel. So traveling around your local environment, like the coffee shops, the gas stations, the places that you go regularly, the restaurants, and communication. So Saturn, the planet of restriction, discipline, and responsibility, being in this place could restrict your ability to travel and navigate these different areas of your life. Maybe like, I don't know, finances are tighter, so you can't visit that coffee shop 3 times a week. Now it's once a week, that can change. Or, or it could be that you get a car and now you have responsibility to a car. And so you have to be mindful of like how you travel and what you say yes or no to. But I think by the end of this transit, you'll understand your neighborhood better. So that could be even towards like the law, and like Saturn also, it represents enforcement of the law. So you might understand like what laws are being enforced and why, or just like how you navigate your environment and why, and how you communicate to expand and solidify your sense of self and community as well. All right, lastly, Pisces rising. Saturn will transit your second house of money and values. And Saturn, being the planet of restriction, discipline, and responsibility, is here to really help you understand how you spend your money and maybe even restrict how you spend your money due to your values maturing. So you might have some expenses that you're wanting to save up for. Maybe there's some big purchases that you want to save up for, and now you can't spend your money on the funny little things that you used to, like I don't know, like a Yoda dispensing toothpaste dispenser. I don't know, like the silly stupid things that we spend money on, that might be coming, restricted now for you to maybe buy a house or buy, a boat, I don't know, whatever it is, something that you're really like, I need and I want, but it's a big purchase. The Saturn and Pisces, or Saturn and Aries transiting your second house can make you be more disciplined with your finances. And I think by the end of this transit, you'll understand how to use your income to improve your life later. All right. Well, folks, that is all that I have for you about Saturn and Aries for now. I will talk about the retrograde once it gets closer to that, but that's what I got so far. Thank you so much for watching this video. And I also want to give a shout out to my patrons for making this video possible. Without you, this will be much harder for me to do. So I am very much grateful for you and your support throughout all the years. And your support means so much to me. But if you would like to become a patron and you want to learn more about astrology, like how did I come up with your horoscope, that might be one of the things that you're curious about, consider becoming an astro devotee. That is where you'll learn astrology from me and get personalized moon tarot readings as well. So you get a good bang for your buck, and it's only $33 a month for those kinds of content. So yeah. I hope you have a great rest of your week and Saturn and Aries transit. May the stars align in your favor, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.